This is Cupido. And so I've put as the title Home, Hearth, and Family. It's actually a lot more than that, but it's a good start. And the first thing I want to talk about, and I always get people asking about the higher octaves and things like that. And so what what I've done is I've tried to put something together here that will help you to see what I use. And I'm not saying that my way is the only highway. I'm just saying that this is what I use. It works for me, and it may or may not work for you, but at least it's a starting point. And I started this project in the 1980s, and I kept watching it. And then I think I've already told you that the Uranian planets are in the fourth dimension, 4D. They're basically in our subconscious, but with the age of Aquarius coming in and the age of Pisces leaving, and we're getting a tremendous amount of age of Aquarius energy coming in, the Uranian planets are becoming more and more identifiable to a lot of people that they ordinarily would not be. And so it's 4D, but it's still there. Even if you don't see it, it's still working. So it's like gravity. You don't see it, but you can sure prove to yourself that it's working because your feet are on the ground. So basically, I just kind of wanted to let you know that that's coming, and we'll go to the second one here. Hello. I guess I got to do this. Okay, here's the higher octave planets as I see them. And like I said, if it works for you, fine. If it doesn't, then go change them around. But Mercury's higher octave as far as Uranian planets go is Admetos. And the reason why I chose Admetos, because remember, it's the seed ideas. It's everything that's underground. It's just sitting there percolating and cooking. And sooner or later, it comes out of the subconscious into the conscious mind, and you have this epiphany or this aha, or you have this new idea or a new way of doing something or a new way of seeing something. So Admetos is the higher octave of Mercury. Venus is Cupido, which we'll be talking about today. And I'm not going to get into that right this second. Mars is Volcanus, and Volcanus is basically the volcano that explodes. It's firepower, and firepower can be, fourth dimensional. It can be conscious, it can be subconscious. And what we really have to watch out for with Volcanus in its dark side is mass murders with guns, explosives, bombs, weapons of war, and nuclear types of things. So it's Mars and Volcanus are like brothers. Jupiter is Zeus, and Zeus is basically sorry, I'm messing around with these. Zeus is basically energy which is unlimited. And I find this interesting that Alfred Witte, who created these and gave these planets their name, he, in Cupido, he's given it the Jupiter with the Venus glyph. Okay. And in Jupiter, with Zeus, all he's done is he's got this arrow shooting off. And the only one that's got an arrow that's shooting anything off is Sagittarius. So I believe that there's, he was probably trying to tell us, perhaps, that it was sort of like Jupiter, only it's far more focused. It is intensely 100% focused on something. It's almost like a laser beam on whatever it is. And Zeus also gives you unlimited energy, and not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You can, on their dark side, see the fanatics, or you can see unity of some sort. For instance, like, people who give out food to people who cannot afford it. That is a focus too, but it's something that's very positive. But the people who do that are very loyal to that idea. And that's what Zeus is, whatever the idea is. And then I said that there's religious zealots and that type of thing. So for Saturn, it's Kronos. Kronos was the father of Saturn anyway. So again, Vita's building off the Saturn, but he's looking more into what else is it going to do when it's in 4D, and what is it cooking up? Well, Kronos is like the empire builder, and that's somebody that has a vision. I mean, it's solid, it's conscious. They want to go after it, and they want to be the best at it. It's like, I want to be the peer group. And these people are very, very physical. A lot of them do a lot of athletic things. For instance, your marathon runners and things like that often have a Kronos in them. And they're very organized and disciplined, like Saturn, only times 100. But Kronos, Saturn wants to own a company or a corporation. Kronos wants a global empire. And that is a huge difference between the two. And also, Kronos does not have the boundaries on it as Saturn does, which is very interesting. Now, Uranus, the higher octave is Apollon, and that's science, inventions, greater ideas of every kind in science. Typically, Apollon is more scientific than it is mystical or metaphysical, although it can be. I've seen some really great quantum physicists like Nassim Haramein, who's going to be coming out here very shortly with I think it's a formula, or it's a mathematical sequence that shows how gravity is actually used. And you see that gravity is one thing that nobody's been able to touch, but he's spent about 20 years figuring out this formula, and he's going to be giving it out here very shortly. But that's an Apollon type of thing. It's science, it's invention, it's greater ideas of every kind, usually in science. And in Neptune, higher octave is Poseidon, and whereas Neptune just gets in a mess, okay? They make a mess and they don't know how to get out of it. With Poseidon, they'll go, oh, there's a mess. Okay, I know what I need to do to clean it up, and then I got to move on. And they'll take it, if they're of any kind of heart type person, they're going to take it in a positive, compassionate way. And of course, we have our dark side. So does Poseidon, and they won't. But it's at its best and it's at its finest. It is the highest degree of compassion, healing, kindness. With Poseidon, you have the opportunity to take your duality and integrate them into oneness. And that's very important, especially to Jungian psychoanalysts, Carl Jung. And that's that integration between the anima and the animus, the male and the female coming together as one. That's a very Poseidon thing. And if somebody's got a strong Poseidon in their chart, or it's a superpower, that is a possibility for them, if that interests them. So for Pluto, the higher octave is Hades, and it's basically with transformation at a very deep emotional level in regards to trauma. That's Hades' area of expertise, and how they can work through it, how they can be released from it by going through the gauntlet and doing the healing process. With Pluto, I see transformation, and I do see some transformation as far as the wounds go, but Hades has a background of family miasms, and I'm getting into homeopathy now. In homeopathy, we believe that there is a thing called a miasm, and it's basically a darkness that runs through the entire DNA and genetic family line. Okay, and to give you an example, it could be alcoholism. Okay, or diabetes can come down through the family, or alcoholism, or addiction, anything that's dark, or sexual incest that runs through the family. And so all of that is Hades' backyard to deal with, and to get the what I call the lumps of coal in our sock that we can't quite reach on our own. Hades can get in there and help us resurrect it, get it up, and look at it consciously and say, okay, it's this is what I need to do to get some help or whatever. to move through it so that I can be free of the damn stuff. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I just wanted to let you know that that is coming to you after this talk. So let's go back to Cupido. As I said before, Cupido is a higher octave of Venus on a more physical level, which I'm saying childbirth, whereas Neptune is a higher octave, denoting more of a spiritual facet of Venus. So to me, Neptune and Cupido is more about your spiritual growth. But when Cupido gets into the picture, either by transit or by progression, then you're looking at, if you're a woman, okay, you might get pregnant or something like that. And we're going to really get into that here in a minute. So Cupido is a glyph of Jupiter with a glyph of Venus, and Jupiter is the planet of largesse, expansion, and generosity. Venus is the goddess of love and compassion and agape in all of its many forms, from gentleness, kindness, thoughtfulness, and helping others, and is unselfish and in a service profession. And this goes back to charities, organizations to help the poor, and that type of area of serving other people. But service can be done in anything and anywhere. So don't just think that, oh, it's to give people food or to give them shelter or something like that. It's a lot more than that. It could be helping your neighbor who, may have got hurt and they can't do cooking or anything because they broke their leg like Jackie did. And you come in and you or the neighborhood gets together because the Cupido person, has gotten everybody together and talked to everyone and said, let's each of us every day, do her meals for her so she has something to eat and check in on her and stuff like that. That is so Cupido. That's just, they are just like that all the time. And I don't care whether they're on the dark side or a healthy light side. They do have this sense of service, of helping others. So the Greeks called Cupido Eros, which means love, and then the Romans called Cupido in Latin, and that's called desire. So kind of an interesting change between the Greeks and the Romans. The Greeks, I'm sure, had agape, which is the highest form of love, but for the Romans, it was desire and sex. The big difference between the two empires, so to speak. Okay, so the symbol, as I said, it's a glyph of Jupiter with Venus, and that's what Vita wanted. I mean, that's what he put together on this. And it's for us to figure out, well, what all does that mean? Again, higher octave of Venus. On a more physical level, it's the childbirth, getting pregnant, having a family, whereas Neptune is the higher octave, denoting a more spiritual facet of Venus when it comes to the emotion of love, which also includes agape, a selfless love that is committed to the well-being of all people, animals, and everything else, and it's all our relations. Okay, some interesting myths about Cupido. Again, these are Greek myths, and there's other myths about it that you may want to look up. It's kind of interesting. Cupid was the god of erotic love and beauty, and he was the son of Venus and Mars. And here's an interesting caveat, although other myths have recorded his father as Mercury or Jupiter too. And he is depicted with a bow, a quiver of arrows, and wings. And when Cupid shot his arrow into someone, they fell obsessively. Now, this is an important word with with this Cupido, obsessively in love with someone. I don't know if you've had women get this more than men, but sometimes I've seen men fall obsessively in love with, let's say, a woman TV star, starlet, or whatever. But these people can put their hooks into someone, and that is their be all. But that's obsessive, and that's going too far. On the other hand, his arrows, Cupid's arrows, you know, like I said, there's always a light and a dark and everything. Well, Cupid's arrows, when they're light, you know, they fall in love. When it's in the dark, it inspires hate of that person whom the arrow is going to instead. So there's two faces to Cupid. He isn't always all good. There's nobody that's always all good or all bad. So eventually Cupid married the beautiful Psyche, and she is pictured here with a butterfly and Cupid. And this is a sculpture by Antonio Canova, Italy in 1797, which was called Eternal Love between them. And I said, no, myths have been misshapen from matriarchal time to patriarchal time, and it makes males the alpha instead of the female and male sharing respect and equality with one another. And the reason why I chose this particular sculpture is, you know, to me, it looks like there's an equality between them, that they're sharing something together. It isn't the man is stronger or the woman is stronger. It's about that matriarchal quality of energy that we're so desperately in need of. Okay, so let's get into the psychology of Cupido. First of all, their world centers around their family, their children, their community, and the village. And I know that most of you have probably had the experience of the next door neighbor coming and giving you an apple pie or something that she made, a loaf of bread, and she's just giving it to you. Okay, and that is definitely a Cupido person. They're really easy to spot. Usually they're fashionably dressed. They love pretty fabrics. They love clothing and jewelry, and they're extremely social. And they're extroverts by nature. They're always the first one to, if they see a stranger, they'll go over to them and start talking to them to make them feel like they're a part of everything else that's going on. They don't want them to feel like that they have been abandoned. They're also community minded, and you will find them on school boards or on town boards, you know, like in a township. Some work at the state or federal level as well. And there's a natural importance within them to understand it takes everyone to make democracy work. And we're in the thick of that right now here in the United States. We need all the Cupido people we can get. And all of them are on the front lines. They're the ones that are protesting. They're the ones that show up with the signs, and they show up at school boards and at township boards. So they're really fighters. They're not squeamish and they're not weak, but they are very committed to the organization as a whole. And the word I always use for them, or not the word, but the saying is we are one. And when you understand we're one, that means all of us. It doesn't matter what color, what gender we are. We're all in the same boat. We're all going the same direction. And we better hope there's no holes in the boat. And if there was, it would be the Cupido who would be putting her or his fingers into the holes where they were leaking at to try and stop them. And that gives you another picture of Cupido. So they have what I call a people cohesiveness, and that's most important to them. And that makes them feel like they're important in a quiet, personal way. They don't go out boasting and bragging about it. You don't find Cupido people going, well, hey, you know, I gave 50 dinners to 50 indigent elderly today. You know, look at me. That's not Cupido. Cupido is very humble, and they have great humility. And you'll never hear them boasting about anything. In fact, you have to pull that stuff out of them to really find out what all they have done for their village or for their family. Now, you'll find Cupidos in many different types of clubs, such as the Lions Club, the Seroptimus Club, the Elks, and so on. And they feel happy, being part of a group that has an objective to make life easier for everyone. You will find them volunteering in food banks, building homes for the poor. And, Jimmy Carter, I'm sure, I haven't done his chart, but I'm sure he has a very, very strong Cupido, probably one of his superpowers in his chart, because he builds homes for the poor, and he's in his 90s, bless his heart, and he's still doing it. That's that Cupido commitment type of thing that they are. They just don't do it for a week or a month and say, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to quit. No, Cupido's there every day of the week, or every time that they can get there. And also, they have donating to such programs as Hungry Children, or the poor, or health issues that makes them unable to pay the rent or bills or food. It will be the Cupido person who will help them out every time. Okay, so I call them the worker bees in many different ways, and they want to work with others as a team. And again, and another saying that is strictly Cupido is all for one and one for all. That is their MO, or their modus operandi. They are fueled by their heart, and nurturing comes so naturally to them. And it's all about love in all of its various different shades. To me, Cupido people, when they're in the light side, they are what I call earth angels. And they have this unerring ability to just psychically know that if someone needs something, they will go over and talk to them and strike up a conversation. And they're never in your face. They're not strident. They're just gentle and kind, and they're good people. Okay, so they also, teamwork is their way of life. The more the merrier, and this is why you find them in large groups. And at its best, it's to help the self and others, and at its darkest, it's joining a misfit club, perhaps a domestic or an international terrorist organization, which they consider, this is the dark side of Cupido, which they consider themselves family also. So if, especially if we get into the Middle East, so many families have been destroyed, and children become orphaned. And then the Middle Eastern dark terrorist organizations pick them up, brainwash them, and that child grows up in that kind of atmosphere, and that is their family, and they will die for it. But that's the dark side of Cupido. In corporations, these are your, what I call HR people, your human resource people, or a person who's able to smooth things over in an upsetting situation, or getting people to talk civilly to one another. A Cupido person is not going to get in your face, bump his chest against the other guy's chest, or level a veiled threat to anybody. They always take the higher ground, and it's their tact, their gentleness, being a very quiet voice when everybody else is raising theirs. That's Cupido. They have an amazing ability. I admire it. I don't have much myself, but I admire it. Now Cupido, we get into the little dark side, or the gray side of the dark side with Cupido, and how they get there is that they are unhappy if they're single. They're unhappy if they don't have a team. They're very happy in marriage. They're very happy living together, although they would rather be married. And so we need to look at this, because Cupido children, if they're left to go, the parents are both working, and they're in childcare, and if they're not getting the necessary nurturing, because Cupido really needs nurturing, they need some attention, not a lot, but they need enough. And if they don't get it, that cuts off one of their major lifelines to them, is this being part of a team, being part of a family. So it's no surprise that divorce is a major jarring trauma to their psyche. And often especially the women, not the men. Often women blame themselves when it takes two to separate, but they don't quite see it that way. And that's something that they have to learn to get over that hurdle and understand that it wasn't just one person who caused the divorce. It takes two to tango. Loss of a family member is devastating to them. I know it is for everybody, okay? But what I'm saying is that if the devastation is a 5 for most people, for Cupido it's a 10 or a 15. It just totally discombobulates them. And it doesn't matter whether it's a child, a parent, a grandparent, or a good friend. They rely on the safety net of the family. And when the family dies or is separated or torn apart for whatever reason, that's the worst possible thing that can happen to a Cupido, is the dissolution of the family for some reason, some way. I mean, it could be a flood, it takes the house and everybody lives, or maybe somebody doesn't live, and they are totally traumatized on a very, very deep level. Okay, they love consensus, but not infighting. You don't find Cupido people talking behind somebody's back. They're a very honest kind of person. If they got an issue, they're going to come to you and they're going to talk to you about it. They're not going to make you feel like it's your fault, okay? And they're not going to take a fault either. They want to discuss it. They want to try and learn from it and figure things out. And they're good at getting two parties together so that they can find common ground. And you think about these arbitrators with these big unions, okay? Those arbitrators are Cupido people. They're trying to dial down the temperature. They're trying to get people to talk to one another and not go off half-cocked, which most people do. A Cupido won't. They'll hang in there and keep trying to fix it. Now, as an employee, Cupido people need what I call a praise and appreciation, and being told they do great work from management. Back in my day, when I was in my 20s and working, you got nothing. I mean, they could care less. You were getting paid $325 a month. You did their work. They didn't pat you on the head. They didn't say, hey, that was great. You saved our ass. Or you saved us $2 billion because somebody in the stock trade did a buy instead of a sell. Nothing. And it was hard to get a raise too. But with Cupido and the generations that are ahead of us, of the baby boomer generation, they need the praise and the appreciation. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that, of course, I should kind of halt this right now and say that right now, I was born in 1946. So I have Cupido conjunct Apollon, and that's a generational thing. So there's a lot of people who have a conjunction within, if you're looking at a 360-degree chart, your natal chart, and if you have Cupido and Apollon within 7 degrees of one another, you have a combination of both. So there's been many generations that have had that. And so again, that Cupido brings in the dialing down of the temperature, the calmness, really listening to the other party. And they have this incredible ability to see through all the different levels that this person has got this frustration, or they're angry about it, or they're upset about it. The Cupido can take these different levels and pull them out and discuss each one of them. And then it just kind of takes the anger out of it, because Cupido people have a way of speaking and show and tell that there's just no other. I haven't seen any planet do what Cupido does. And you will find these Cupido people also in state departments here in the United States. These are people who are ambassadors to other countries. They're at the UN. These are all good people trying to get everybody to come together. It's like herding cats. Good luck on that one. Another planet some of their time. Okay, as an employee, also, they don't feel part of the team if they're not patted on the head every once in a while. They may quit in such a situation, always searching for what they call it takes a village management instead. And over the years, I've had secretaries or assistants, whatever you want to call them, and inevitably, when I hired somebody, I wanted to make sure that they had a Cupido that was prominent in her chart, or at least had more soft aspects to it than hard aspects. I wanted a team player. I wanted her to be part of my team. And I made very sure that my assistant always knew my appreciation. And I told her so. And, some days I would put, a little vase of flowers on her desk. She didn't ask me to, and it's flowers from my garden. But isn't it nice to get flowers? I mean, that Cupido is so thoughtful about things like that. Okay, so let's get it. We've gotten to the idea. We understand where the bulk of their energy and their emphasis and what's important to them, their gestalt is. But now let's get into some of the other fields that they're also in. Because remember, it's a Jupiter with Venus glyph, and that just smacks of creativity of the best kind. When you put those two together, oh my gosh. So the Cupido people are basically into any type of art that catches their interest. They're very happy doing it. And as a matter of fact, you can tell a Cupido little kid, okay, you give them a coloring book, or you give them, some little tempera paints and the paint, and even if they're 6 years old, they're grabbing that brush and you got that paper in front of them and they're just going to town. That's a strong Cupido in a child without even ever looking at the chart. They love color. They love bright colors, and they like lots of color. And you will also find that in the clothes they wear too. And you can always tell when a Cupido's got a bad day, or they're not feeling good when they come to work. They're going to be they're going to be wearing browns and grays or blacks instead of their bright colors. They're very tellable from that standpoint of what they wear on a given day. Look at their clothing. Look at the colors. Are they muted? Are they bright? Are they downplayed? Are they dark? Gray? They hate gray. They don't like dark colors in anything. But some of the things that I put here was that they could own a flower shop. Boy, for sure, they can be a quilter, or crochet, knitting, tatting, you name it. It's gardening, needlepoint, jewelry making, sculpture. They love music. They always have music on. They're always listening to music, which isn't a bad thing, because there's nothing on TV you want to watch anymore. It's so depressing. They instinctively know what lifts them, and that is a great thing to have. I mean, if you have a Saturn, that's not exactly where you're going. There's no great upliftment with Saturn, all right? If you can just get through the day, you feel pretty lucky. Good, bad, or indifferent. But with a Cupido person, that music is a lifeline to their heart and to their soul. They also like singing. Even if they can't sing, they're singing, bless their hearts, or dancing. They love to dance. They love to move. And so anything that takes creativity and instead of giving birth perhaps to a child, they give birth to one of their skills or more. You'll see them a lot as graphic artists in the internet age. They're always optimistic about life and themselves. I don't care how bad it gets, unless they lose a family member or they lose a good friend. That's when that stops at that door. They tend to see beauty everywhere, and they see the beauty in people. I don't care if it's a beggar, or there's a guy sitting on the sidewalk with his dog and he's homeless. Cupido's the type that will not only bring the money, but she'll bring dog bones back for the dog and some water if the dog needs it, and buy the guy you know, a sack of hamburgers from McDonald's. I've seen them do it. It makes them so happy to be able to uplift somebody else, because that lifts them. And that's a nice thing to have. So they see beauty everywhere, in people, places, and in nature. Okay, so at their best, they are like an overflowing cornucopia who not only receives money, recognition, but also shares it with others. And for example, Chef Jose Andres, who is one of my favorite human beings in the world, again, he's an earth angel. Andres created the World Central Kitchen to feed people when devastation hits in their area. And right now they're over in the Ukraine, and they're also in Israel right now. This man is the heart and the soul of Cupido, because Cupido people love food. Oh my God, they make the best chefs, they make the best food, and their desserts are to die for, which I don't need. Okay, so on a spiritual level, they have an easier time connecting love, spirit with their psyche and their personality. And they may bring back advanced skill sets with them, which to serve their community, their region, or even, you know, the world. A Reiki healer, a hands-on healer, which my mother was, a shaman, a medicine person, nurse, medical people, daycare center people for children or the elderly. These are all Cupido areas where you're going to find them. And they are, you know, it's interesting to watch a Cupido person because they're quiet. You know, like I said, they don't go around bragging about anything. But if you watch them, you see the love around them by the little things that they do. It might be a touch on somebody's shoulder. It might be a word to this person over here. Or if it's an animal, oh my God, are Cupido people animal lovers? Cats, dogs, horses, cows, you name it. And people who take care of, like, wild mustangs, or they're saving cattle from being slaughtered, because now they've got a ranch where they can keep some and save their lives. This is all Cupido at work. They're driven by a divine energy of love that sees through the storms and the good times of their lives. They make people smile, and people feel valued and loved by this person. And they literally are like sunlight to others. Sometimes I've seen some Cupido people, they just walk into the room and it's like the sun rose. And it's nothing they said, it was nothing they did, it's just in their aura. It's just in their energy, and it's an incredible thing to be around, because we all get bathed in that love that's a part of them. Okay, of all the jobs, they are our best teachers at every grade level and beyond. They are world teachers simply by being themselves. They are able to trigger a child's curiosity, confidence, and help them in their ever-expanding world. It could be a teacher inside a school, a university, a vocational school, or simply someone you meet in your neighborhood walk or in a grocery store. I can't tell you how many times I've had really wonderful conversations with people in the grocery store. Because one woman, I remember, she was older and she was only like about 5 foot tall, and I was at that time I was 5'9", but I've lost 2 inches now with age. But at 5'9", she was trying to reach for something that was way too high for her. And I just came up and I said, "Would you like me to get, what would you like to get me? You know, what do you need up there?" And she told me, so I pulled it down and gave it to her. And you would have thought that you'd given her the world. They were so grateful. And then she told me, she says that particular can of whatever it was, and I don't remember what it was now, was something that she bought only once a month because she couldn't afford it, because she was on a a fixed income. And that can, I think it was a fruit of some sort, it was like she was going to be making a ceremony out of that, say it was pears or something like that. and she would only eat one a day for the next 7 days or so. And you never know how much a tiny thing like that can help somebody else. But Cupido knows that, and Cupido goes around skulking through the aisles of a grocery store looking to see if they can help somebody. I've done it myself. So anyway, they always make people feel better on some level by their presence, no matter how short or long that experience occurs. And they are your everyday people who make a profound difference in our lives. Okay, when consensus between two people or groups does not occur, the Cupido person may blame themselves, and then they become anxious. And depending upon the Cupido person, they can begin to feel like a victim, or they feel helpless to change it for the better. And usually this has to do with family things, the family squabbles, or husband-wife things, or living together. But the Cupido person takes on the blame for the situation when it isn't theirs to carry or take in the first place. Or they may have a 50% on it, but the other 50% is the other party. But Cupido doesn't get that. So that's their downfall. That is their Achilles heel right there. And one of them, we'll get into more here in a minute. They're always desiring pats on the head or well done, and that can go awry, and they become subservient to a stronger person, or in a boss in an employment situation, and they may start simpering to get noticed, to get loved or acknowledged. And this is where the victimhood creeps in, and or a projection in order to get noticed and appreciated. So this is where we see the openings in their goodness is where their downfall is at, and where they have lessons that they need to learn this lifetime. And we get into my favorite topic, helicopter parents. Cupido, when it's going from gray toward the dark side of the measuring ruler, they can be helicopter parents if they aren't careful. And you cannot protect a child from the slings and arrows of life all the time. That's absolutely impossible. And children are smothered. And this is where you get the smother mother syndrome, another Cupido issue. And none of these overprotective states helps a child to become strong, resilient, or confident. The woman may put a priority on having a child and then have medical issues that prevent it, or a surrogate may have to do it as a replacement. She can have uterine or hormonal medical issues. The man also may have hormonal issues that prevent him from fertilizing the egg as well. Okay, moving on with the darker side of Cupido. Obsessively falling in love with a person when they may not return your love. Men who stalk a woman fall into this category. Also becoming an abuse victim, unable to leave the abuser, because the way a Cupido thinks when they're trapped in an abusive situation is that you got to remember the number one gestalt of this person, this Cupido person, is they need a family. They have to be a team member. That is overriding in everything they do. So even if she, the guy is beating the hell out of her, he's still family, and she's still there. And so this is part of the conundrum of what can happen. And they're unable to leave their abuser until something happens or they get killed. And that's a real downfall for them. So a man or a woman obsesses over someone, I call it misplaced love, but is so hungry for love to be returned that they stalk them. And women have done this too. It isn't just, mostly it's men, but the women are in there also with that. Teen girls or boys often get caught into this harmful trap because they just don't have the emotional maturity to see it for what it is. Family abuse figures prominently, and believe me, I've seen my fair share of this as a medical astrologer. And what I did here is I put in, now you're going to be getting a handout, a big 2-page handout on Cupido with different things. For instance, like here it says Cupido/Saturn. Well, that could be a progressed Cupido conjunct the natal Saturn in a 90-degree dial. And you can turn it around. It could be a progressed Saturn conjunct the person's natal Cupido. Either way, it's working the same. Okay. The progression means that you're going to have it for, 6 months coming and a month going after it's past that conjunction point with that either transit or with that progression. It's gone. But if you've got it turned around otherwise, if it's a progressed Saturn on your natal Cupido, then there's some harder lessons to learn, because Saturn is going to force you to look at your limitations and to figure out what's going on here and why. And Saturn is good at breaking restrictions and limits on us that need to be broke so that we can get free of it. But besides the Cupido/Saturn, I have Cupido Hades, and Cupido Admetos can indicate a male who incests his baby, his own child, his own baby, his own child, his either a young adult or can also rape the wife, spousal rape. And it could also be possibly a relative like an uncle or a grandfather who is the attacker on the family, although it's a secret. And that's what I'm saying, this miasm kind of theory of it moves across generations. If it was done in this generation, it's going to happen again in this one. And it does, until somebody stops it. So, and this is what I say here, generational family miasm involving negative sexual outcomes. And like I said, it's usually against a child, the children, or a wife within that family. Okay, healing tools. This is important for Cupido if they're really down and out. This is where you need to lead them to, or to inspire them to get back into doing these types of things, because it's going to help them. It's going to feed them. It's going to nurture them. One good thing about a Cupido, when they're down, if you can support them and they're not taking energy away from you, because they can be psychic vampires sometimes. If you can get them back into whatever they used to do, even if they're down and out and they feel helpless, they feel like a victim, find out, ask them, what hobbies do you have? Because Cupido people always have hobbies, and they probably got more than most, because Jupiter, remember, Jupiter is a lot of everything, usually too much. So they will have things, and they'll tell you, and try and get them back into it, and give them, some pats on the head, or come over and say, hey, that looks really great, keep at it. You don't have to be there 100% of the time. You might be, if it's a neighbor or something like that, you might see them 2 or 3 times a week, just to kind of help support them to get back out of that and get into something that makes them happy and makes them feel like they're worthy of something and they're not all bad as they think they are. So I suggest taking art, photography, or sewing class where they can reach into their creativity. Also, you could suggest, if they don't want to do that, then say, have you thought about painting this room a different color? That might get them. Or new wallpaper, or new carpet if they can afford it. Anything that spurs their creative interests and it becomes a healthy diversion. They're often excellent at computer graphics, painting, creation of a website or web page. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to what I missed. Okay, there it is, Cupido Healing Tools number 1. So here you see a graphic of chicken soup. That's Cupido. They'll start with a C. Okay. They heal better at home than being in a hospital. They actually go downhill in a hospital. The Cupido people don't do well at all. And as a matter of fact, as an EMT, I've seen people who are Cupidos who have pulled out IVs and pulled out the catheter, which really hurts a lot. and stalk out of the emergency room doors in their gown, and they are out of there. They want to go home. They get much better much sooner if they're at home. So home is a base of operation. And also on a happy note, they are usually people who have a cottage industry, and a lot of women who are Cupidos have cottage industries at their home too. And they're very happy. They have the best of both worlds. Also, desiring family members around them if they are sick. You don't leave a Cupido person who has flu or is not feeling well, and you shut the door to their bedroom and not ever come back, figuring, if they need something, they'll get up and tell you, or go to the bathroom or whatever. Not so with Cupido people. They need you to check in on them. Okay. Are you okay? Is there anything I can get you? Are you warm enough? Are you thirsty? Things like that they love. That just feeds them, and that makes them feel a little better. It gives them the strength to work through whatever the ailment is. And that's important. If words can do that much, I think that's a pretty good thing. They like to be nurtured, supported, pampered, and cared for by others when ill. And you can't let this get out of hand, by the way, because Cupido would love to have you sit in their bedroom where they're sick 24 hours a day, if you could do that. Don't get into that trap with them, okay? And what you can tell them is say, hey, I'll check in on you, every hour or every couple hours to see if you need anything. Keep it loose and don't do that. You'll be sorry. Then you become a caregiver, which Cupido people are, by the way. Okay. So the healing tools, number 3, Cupido loves to be visited by friends, family, groups, and it lifts their spirits and engages their desire to get well. They love receiving flowers. Even if you pick some daisies out of your yard, put them in a damn vase and give it to them, they're happy because they appreciate everything that you went to create that vase of flowers just for them. That's their mindset. So family care, family harmony helps Cupido get well. And they will utilize. The thing about Cupido people, they aren't necessarily into prescription drugs. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are anti-prescription drugs, and they won't take anything. And I've had run-ins with some of my Cupido clients over the years as a medical astrologer, where they swear that they will not ever take a prescription drug. And I'm going, now wait a minute. If you got an infection, you're going to go on antibiotics. You've got to do that much. And I'm usually able to talk them into that, but anything after that, forget it. There's like a stone wall there. It's like they know that it's not right for them. And a lot of Cupido people go to herbs, or they go to alternative medicine to get help. Naturopathic doctors, for instance, chiropractors, rather than to go to the medical establishment. And you got to watch them on that, because sometimes you do need the hospital. But anyway, they love aromatherapy. They love fragrances, and that supports and inspires them. They have their 5 senses, 6 senses actually, are very well honed. So music, the way a food is presented to them, is beautiful. All right. They love that. They love aromatherapy. They like, natural essences. That just inspires them to get better, makes them feel happier, gives them a better frame of mind. And when you're sick, getting a good frame of mind is important, because it's going to dig you out of that hole. So they also like herbal salves or lotions. And I would urge them to make a flower essence of their own favorite flower and then drink the water, because that's going to help them more than anything else. What's your favorite flower? Give them something to do, and it's healthy for them. And if they drink the water, okay, that's good. Okay, so Cupido, when sick, loves living plants in their rooms. Don't take in some plastic thing that looks like a plant. They will feel like they've been downgraded by you. All right, get a real plant. I don't care if you have to go dig it up out of your garden and put it in a pot. It's living, okay? That's what it means to a Cupido person. It's about life. It's about growing and blooming, and because that's all they want to do, all right? In some ways, they're very plant-like. And you can bring some of the seeds in a pot and grow the thing, have them help you if they can, and they can watch that plant grow, and if it's possible that they can get out of bed or reach for the water to give the plant water. It's the little things in life that really count with Cupido people. And so it's an interesting thing with them, and as it's a good one. You can find a pot someplace, and you can find a flower someplace if you need to. And like I said before, they have music they like to hear when they are convalescing. Music heals their spirit and inspires them toward hope and optimism. And they do. They're more than likely to like the classics. Many of them like opera. And so, just make sure they got a radio, or they've got earphones, or whatever on their ears, so that they can listen to whatever they want. All of that is uplifting to them, and it will make a big difference. Okay, so if they like to knit, crochet, sew, fabric art, or anything having to do with their hands and fingers, makes them feel good. They like producing things. They like manufacturing things. If you have a Cupido woman, she likes to have lots of kids. She manufactures them one after the other, big families. That's just the way they are built. And also weaving is something that they like to do. Quilting is a specialty of this person. And they get to make baby quilts for newborns and the family, or making a quilt for the family in general, maybe like a Christmas gift. Quilts are passed down generationally, and Cupido loves this idea of passing such love forward. You also find with Cupido, they're the genealogists of the family too. Okay, they're the ones that are more likely to make the family tree and find out who's where and what, and what the DNA is on it, and where we came from. They love that. And you find professional genealogists who have a strong Cupido in their chart. For them, getting into all of this generational stuff, they're passing on their love to the newer, younger family members, and they will always have their nose in a tree somewhere on their desk. That's how you can tell they're a Cupido. Okay. So this is medical Cupido, number 1 and number 2 handouts. For getting pregnant, I just want to kind of go over it, and let's kind of move our heads to a 90-degree dial right now, okay? With the natal in the center, and then the second one out is going to be the progressions. If somebody wants to get pregnant, all right, there are times to hone in on that and figure it out by looking at the progressions or the transits of the chart. And for instance, if you had here on getting pregnant, if you have either transiting Cupido or progressed Cupido conjunct that person's Venus, that woman can get pregnant at those times. And you could turn that around. It could be transiting or progressed Venus on the woman's natal Cupido. Again, get pregnant. Another duo is Cupido Mars. Same thing, Cupido Jupiter. You may end up with Cupido Jupiter or Jupiter Cupido with people, with a woman who's taken fertility drugs. She may end up with 3 or 4 kids. Yeah, that's Jupiter, right? Jupiter is largesse. It's more than one. Yeah, it's multiples. It's like rabbits breeding. So you kind of want to watch that one because, you know, I've had clients come in that I have dealt with on these, and the stories I could tell you. The woman that I did that for had progressed Jupiter conjunct her Cupido, and she was on hormonal drugs and fertility drugs, and she ended up having 3 children from that. And again, that's Jupiter. You also have Cupido Zeus. Zeus is very fertile, believe it or not. It's the fire of life. Just stop and think about, you know, a flaming arrow. Fire is always about life. It's about giving energy to manifest something. Okay. So Cupido Zeus is a really good one, or a Zeus Cupido, for someone getting pregnant. Now, you get to Apollon. Apollon is the glyph Jupiter with the sign Gemini. It's 2 of everything. Okay. And what I've put here with the Cupido Apollon, or turn it around, Apollon Cupido, twins or multiple births. There's another one. And then we get into the mistake area. If, say, transiting or progressive Cupido is conjunct your natal Uranus and you're a woman, I put, oops, the condom broke. You're suddenly preggers. You're suddenly fertile myrtle. You are pregnant and you didn't plan for it. So anytime you see Uranus Cupido or Cupido Uranus in somebody's chart and they're a woman and they are of childbearing age, you need to tell them that this is going to be, you know, you've got 6 months coming on this one if it's a progression, and then a month after. You got 7 months where you better hope the condom doesn't break, unless they're trying to get you know, pregnant. And you can certainly get pregnant on a Cupido Uranus. But usually it's like, oh no, didn't want to be. And that's also about abortion. Uranus, again, stillborns, and also just having not wanting or needing another child, you can't afford it, then there is the abortion choice there. But Uranus is almost always involved in that in some way, shape, or form. So again, if you've got a client who's a woman who is of childbearing age and you see that Cupido Uranus, be talking to them and being honest about it. Tell them what to look out for, okay? Because you're probably not going to go for 7 months without having sex. I mean, if you're married and that type of thing. So there's just some precautions that need to be looked at. You might be checking your condoms to make sure there's no slits or anything in them because they're old. The man won't do it, but the woman will for obvious reasons. Okay, so we get into what I call the fertile myrtles. Now, this is a Venus Cupido or a Cupido Venus. People who have a Venus conjunct Cupido in their chart, in their natal chart, they really are fertile myrtles. Oh my God. They can produce babies faster than you can count them. So, and usually those people are very happy to have more, not less. Otherwise, it can be a real mess for them. Okay, another fertile myrtle is Mars Cupido. Again, Mars just exacerbates and blows Cupido up, going, oh yeah, here comes an egg down the fallopian tube. I'm gonna go get my sperm on it. It is a dynamic thing, and it can happen, and it does happen. I've seen it too many times. Another one is a Jupiter Cupido or Cupido Jupiter. The baby, when it is born, weighs 10 pounds. And if you've ever been pregnant, 10 pounds is like a bowling ball. And that's a lot. Most babies are around 6 to 7 pounds. 6 being a nice one. Okay, you have Cupido Zeus. You can get fraternal twins out of this. Zeus is a fertile sign. And it's one after Cupido. If you're going to get pregnant, you're going to look in that person's chart and you're going to see where that progressed Cupido and where that progressed Zeus is at. And if there's anything with what I've got here going on, you need to warn the woman ahead of time, hopefully, and before it's too late. So it is what it is. And Cupido Apollon, I said twins or a lot more births due to the fertility drugs. That one, I doubt very seriously if they're going to have one child. They're going to have twins, or again, it is the hormonal fertility drugs. Okay, labor begins with Cupido. If you see them, most of my all right, about half of the pregnant women that I've dealt with over the last 40 years, they come to me because they want to either get pregnant or they are pregnant and they want to know what do the aspects look like at the time 9 months later when you're going into labor. And this really you've got to look at the whole schematic of the 90-degree dial. Okay, I'm pulling one thing out here to talk about, but it is the one thing that is going to tell you, even if you don't know anything else and you don't have any medical background, that if you see this coming in that woman's chart and it's hitting at that 9-month labor, you need to tell her that no home births. Okay, because I know midwives are great. I've worked with them. They're wonderful, but you know, something can go terribly wrong and they won't know it. And they're at the house and they're not at the hospital where they need, say, like ultrasound, or they need whatever to check, you know, the fetus coming down the vagina or not. So these birth issues are really, really the heart of everything that I'm talking about here today, because I've never lost a patient who had a really bad looking labor coming up, because I knew what to do. I knew where to send her, and I knew that her gynecologist had to know these things. And so let's just get into some of these things. They're not happy, but some of them can be avoided if you know ahead of time. You know, instead of a home birth, you're going to tell this person, look, you need to be in the hospital for this. There's just no way around it. And I've never had a woman back up on me and say, no, I won't do that. I want a home birth, because I explain to them in medical detail what can happen. And sometimes it's not so much the birth, but it's after the birth. And the woman may have a blood clot or may have a hemorrhage, a slight hemorrhage. And that hemorrhage may go on for 2 or 3 days. And if they send her out of there before that time, she could bleed out and die at home. And I've seen it happen. Not on my watch, not with my people, but boy, it's there. And that's, you know, I have a lot of clients who have had miscarriages, who have had stillborns, or the child died within hours after being birthed. And that's just a horrible thing. And sometimes it can be avoided. And that's why I do what I do as a medical astrologer. I am keen on this, which is why I spent a lot of time doing this second handout on the types of things that Cupido gets into in that natal chart with the progressions. If you see that and you don't know what you're looking at, you can always email me. Give me, you know, email me and tell me what's going on. What do you see? I'll probably have you send the chart and I'll look at it and I can tell you the rest of the story. And you can save a life. You can save 2 lives. It's that serious. So let's get into these birth issues, because they are really, really important. If you have a progressed Cupido conjunct a natal Hades in that woman's chart, then all bets are off, because Hades rules deformity. It rules genetic and DNA issues, and there's nothing you can do about that, except where the wife wants to have a home birth, and you see that in the chart, I have never told one of my pregnant clients what I saw if I see a Hades there. I don't want to set her up beforehand to scare the living Jesus out of her. Or she could go into labor out of the shock of it. You don't tell these people that. You keep your mouth shut. And only you know, and if you have a good relationship with the doctor, and as a medical astrologer, I talk to a whole lot of doctors who are my clients, and we talk medicalese. And they're at ease because I can talk medicalese. And I can get a lot further in that situation to tell the doctor that, you need to have extra equipment on hand. There's a potential deformity. And even if the doctor doesn't believe me, when they start hearing about fetal deformity after birthing, and it may not have been evident at the time, even with an ultrasound when the woman was pregnant, doesn't matter. They are, gynecologists are really in a bind anyway, and they don't want the legal end of this if they're wrong. So they usually listen to me. And then that means that if the deformity can be handled or surgery done after the birth, that gives that baby a chance to live, possibly, and sometimes not. It just depends upon what the deformity is. So Cupido Hades is my number one worst case scenario. And these are the things you have to do when you see it in a woman's chart and she's pregnant when she comes to you as a client. You cannot sit there with your mouth shut. You have got to, get a hold of me, get a hold of another medical astrologer who knows what the hell they're doing, and get a hold of the doctor, and because you don't want to upset the mother. So the next one is Cupido Saturn. And I see a lot of cystic fibrosis, which is mucus in the lungs. And this is usually because it's been a slow birth and the infant is starting to breathe while still in the vaginal area and not come out and been born yet. And so that's part of what causes cystic fibrosis. So Cupido Saturn is something to look at with that, as far as trying to hurry a birth. The medicine can get the birth going, but they can't hurry it down the vagina necessarily. Just depends upon the woman's strength, her musculature in the vaginal area. And if it isn't really good and it can't squeeze really tight and hold it, it's going to be a slow birth. And Cupido Saturn means it is going to be a slow birth. So just knowing that much, again, I talk to the doctors. I don't talk to the client about this. And the next one is Cupido. This one has been my highest amount of issues with one specific thing, has been this Cupido admetos. And it denotes inability to be fertile or produce a stillborn, or strangulation or suffocation of the fetus by the umbilical cord, either in utero, in the womb, okay, because the cord can wrap around the fetus neck. All you have to do, I have saved so many children this way. All you have to do is tell the doctor that they need to take ultrasound, and they need to be taking it very close to as the birth is ongoing, and make sure that that umbilical cord is not wrapped around the fetus's neck. And that one right alone has saved so many lives. It's not even funny. Okay, you have Cupido Mars, and also Cupido Uranus. This implies that there could be a possible miscarriage. Also, unhappily for the woman, it could also mean a C-section. You know, they're cutting into her abdomen and taking the fetus out that way when it wasn't planned. And if you can tell them ahead of time, they can all be set up in these birthing chambers with the right tools and everything else that they need instead of getting caught off guard. And that's another thing to talk to them about. Cupido Neptune, there's two sides to this one. First of all, Neptune rules bacteria and rules viruses, period. With Cupido there, that means that there's a possibility that the woman has a bacterial or a viral situation in her that she may or may not know about. And that needs to be looked into. You know, have you had this test, and this test to verify that or not? And a bacteria or a virus can also miscarry a fetus before it's supposed to be born. So it can also mean that the woman is infertile. All right, if she's trying to get pregnant, don't do it on a Cupido Neptune or a Neptune Cupido. It's not going to work. They're not going to get pregnant. Okay. Okay, Cupido Pluto. Again, fetal deformity, genetic issues, DNA issues, just like Hades, only Pluto isn't as bad as Hades. And sometimes you can get a pass if it's Pluto and you're just going, oh, thank God, you know, they didn't die, or the deformity, you know, had something to do in some part of the body that's going to require a little bit of surgery, but it's not major. So Pluto is a step down from Hades, and that can give you some breathing room, you know, for that person. Cupido Volcanus. This is a good one. You know, Volcanus is the explosion. It comes fast, it comes out of nowhere. And usually women who have had at least one childbirth, and this is the second or third child, if you see Cupido Volcanus or Volcanus Cupido, it means an early birth, possibly premature, because the womb and the muscles holding at the cervical area is weak, and the infants will start crowning, or it will happen sooner than it's supposed to, just because of weak muscles. Or another thing is that it's a sudden fast birth. And you get this all the time with women. You know, they're heading for the hospital, and all of a sudden, halfway there, they've birthed the child. But that is a very Volcanus type of situation. Okay, Cupido Neptune, or Cupido's Poseidon. This is one you really want to watch. It can mean the spiritual birth of a baby, or a baby who is a very high spiritual being is coming in. But 9 times out of 10, in my experience, it could mean water on the brain or hydrocephalus. And what it means is that the baby has extra cerebral spinal fluid around the brain after it's born. And that is a very serious, deadly thing. And so if you see that, again, if I'm talking to the gynecologist and I see that Cupido Neptune or Cupido Poseidon, and if I had the Cupido Poseidon by itself and there wasn't anything else that was interacting progressed-wise at that same time of that labor, I would probably say, well, you know, the kid's probably going to be an old soul coming in. And I wouldn't be so concerned about hydrocephalus being the outcome. But it's worth looking at and checking out. And if you do see that, and it's a Cupido Poseidon, and there might be some other indicators with some of the other things that I've talked about around birth issues, another progression to another natal planet in that 90-degree dial, it's better that they don't have a home birth, they go to the hospital to a birthing room and take that route instead. Now, another really sad one. I've seen this happen. Cupido Chiron or progressed Chiron on the natal Cupido of a woman who is at 9 months, death of a fetus. And it can happen at 7 months or 6 months. You know, it doesn't, wherever that hits, there's the possibility of miscarriage or premature birth. And, you know, anytime I see Cupido Chiron and the woman's pregnant, I'm asking a lot of questions. If she's had pregnancies before, what were they like? And what I'm looking for is just to see if there's any medical issues that she has anyway. And now she's pregnant again and she's got this one coming up. This is the last thing I want to see is a Cupido Chiron or a Chiron Cupido, because it's usually means that she could die during the birth or the death of the fetus before birth. Or it could also mean that the fetus is birthed and the baby must have life-saving, say, heart surgery or something like that within days of being birthed. It's that kind of severe situation. Also, the death of the mother is usually, it's about hemorrhaging, and it's about, you know, like I said, this can be 2 or 3 days, even 5 days out, and you'll find the woman dead, and it's because she hemorrhaged, but it was a slow hemorrhage and didn't notice it because, you know, you're really sore and you're not paying attention. You're paying a whole lot of attention to how bad you feel in your vaginal area and in the womb area, but it all feels so bad or so bruised or painful that most mothers do not pay attention to the fact that they're tired. And you see, one of the a slow hemorrhage indicator is that the woman gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and she just puts it off that, oh, well, she just had a birth and she hasn't been able to sleep and stuff like that, and she dies. So it's up to you to get a hold of that gynecologist and say, look, you need to keep her in for at least 3 to 5 days, which they will fight like hell not to do that. And to monitor her blood levels and her oxygenation level to find out what's going on. And because she may require surgery for wherever that bleeder's at, somewhere around her womb or around the vaginal area, the cervical area. You can pop a blood vessel having a baby, let me tell you. I mean, just flat out blow it out, just like, you know, a tire blowing out on the highway. And then it can become really serious. But if it's smaller ones, if they're just small veins, you know, they're going to bleed out, but they may bleed out and into an area around the cervical area, and it may cause them to maybe feel a little discomfort. It may feel like a bruised feeling in a certain area. And one of the things that I have trained my patients to do is just to be sure that if you're feeling a bruised area or it's becoming painful after a day, and it shouldn't be, or there's a little swelling there, that's when you need to get on the phone immediately to your gynecologist and get in and have that looked at, because it could be a slow bleeder that will eventually bleed out enough to stop that woman's heart from beating. So none of this stuff is fun to talk about, but if you're a medical astrologer, you're into this up to your hocks, and you better have some medical background. You cannot do this work without it. You're going to put your people at risk because of what you don't know. So the handout is going to have a lot more information in it for you. Okay, so Miscarriage is Cupido Admetos. It could be Cupido Saturn, Cupido Neptune, Cupido Uranus, or it could be a Cupido Zeus Saturn. And you can turn all those around. You mix and match them, okay? You may have Neptune with Cupido or Saturn with Cupido, or progressive Admetos with Cupidos natally. It doesn't matter. It still means miscarriage. And childbirth via surgery or C-section. If you weren't planning on C-section, you're going to find a Cupido Uranus, a Cupido Mars, or a Chiron Cupido involved in that. And especially with a Chiron Cupido, things can go terribly wrong. That woman could die on the table. So it's a deadly serious thing. And she needs to be in the hospital. That gynecologist needs to know everything. Whether he or she believes it or not, I could care less, but it's in his or her brain because of the legal things that they have to jump through. Okay, fetal distress. This is strangulation by a cord around the neck of the fetus during the birthing. You have Cupido Neptune, Cupido Admetos, Moon Admetos, Venus Admetos, Cupido, and then you have Mars Admetos Cupido, and then you have Saturn Admetos Cupido, or Uranus Admetos Cupido. And you can have, if they are all, especially if they are so-called conjunct in the 90-degree dial, and you see these things, they're for real, and you've got to act on them. And you've got to tell, you don't tell the mother, you just go to whoever her gynecologist is. Okay, so twins or multiple births are born. Cupido Apollon and sometimes Cupido Zeus are your two biggest ones. I say, okay, this is codependency issues are magnified here. Person has now we're talking about more the Cupido that's from the gray area, kind of leaning toward the black area of the ruler here. Person has a victim's mentality, and they may have health problems that result in this give scenario. Now, I wonder how many of you women out there, often feel like you give, and you never get anything back. I mean, this is a patriarchal world we live in. And so women can give their lives, and that's fine. Or they just keep giving, and then they become drained, and the adrenals are depleted. And then the immune system goes down. I mean, this becomes a ladder that's just going to kind of fall to the ground sooner or later. And getting out of their codependent behavior will result if they don't get out of their codependent behavior, that will be the result, the give. And finally, it turns into a massive chronic fatigue syndrome. And that's awful because the woman is in pain no matter what she does. And she can't hardly move. She's tired, fatigued from the pain, and nothing can stop the pain. Okay. Cupido women over responsible one in the family. Now, if you were firstborn, okay, or you're the person who takes care of the family when they are young, all right, and you were too young to do so, that sets you up for being over responsible to take care of everybody. And again, it's the give that Cupido has to deal with here. This sets them up to be stressed out, to be used and abused by other family members. And this happens very often. To resolve it, Cupido needs to break the old conditional familial patterns from the past and let others be responsible for themselves. So this is a huge thing because remember, family is everything. Being one with all the family, being united. Cupido's the last person to leave the family to break that miasm that has come down through the generations. But that's what they've got to do. That's why they came in the way they did, is to learn this lesson. They've got to, in order to save your own life, for you to have a life of your own, on your own terms, you have to leave and break that up. And also health problems in relation breakup with spouse or the family. We just talked about health problems in relation to family problems, stresses the Cupido person out. And I saw this cartoon. I thought it was pretty cool. It's the therapist saying, you may have a tiny bit of codependency. And you can see the husband and wife, they're like one. You don't want that. That's not healthy. But that's a Cupido issue that they've come in to try and resolve and get right with, rather than for you paying for the whole damn family. Okay, so community involvement, which drains Cupido or uses or abuses the privilege of their community-minded help of others. This is stress on their immune system. And the end result is can be chronic fatigue syndrome, to which the medical community has no way, they have not yet figured out, because they're all males for the most part, that, the woman's overworking, give her the rest, let her have a life, and you come in and you do the damn vacuuming, you go start cooking some of the meals. Hey, and by the way, you can wash the windows too, and get out the vacuum cleaner for the carpet or whatever. That's how you can help in these situations. Okay, problem with their children, which uses or abuses the privilege of their child-minded reality. And there is a child-minded reality with Cupido, because again, family's everything. Everything is family. And stress on the immune system results. They try to be super mom to the children and to the patriarchal husband. So then, it goes, it's like ladder steps, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. The next thing is that they're chief caregiver or caretaker of the family. Never mind an older elderly person that you also need to take care of. Okay, you got everything piled up on you. And this is the use and abuse of the privilege of their responsibility to the family. And it's, again, stress on the immune system. They get burned out, fatigued, used up, and exhausted. And chronic fatigue syndrome is the bottom line. That's where they crash and burn. And sometimes it takes that for Cupido people to finally get it, that, they're worthy of living, not dying under the auspices of the family crest. All right, another thing Cupido does is trying to please others to the detriment of their own needs, their own wants, their own desires, goals, or dreams. You always put them second or third or fourth, and you never get to them. And this is another facet of victim or codependent behavior. So Cupido has been trained to give, but not take. They were taught taking was selfish for a woman, and this is what I call a patriarchal socialization lie. This pattern has to be broken, or poor health will result eventually for them. And then they spread themselves too thin for family, group, and community-minded projects, and it gets out of hand. They don't know when to stop it, and they've got more and more responsibility heaped on their saggy shoulders, and it stresses them out. Cupido is the original supermom who wants to do it all, but there is a price for this reality. Cupido people can also be an orphan, maybe adopted, foster family situation. You'll see it in your chart, probably natally. You'll have a Cupido-Admetos relationship, or a Cupido-Saturn, or a Cupido-Pluto. Okay, so Cupido rejected by the family, which sets up an incredible stress that can result in disease unless Cupido could see the positive benefit of no longer being aligned with the dysfunctional family unit. And it usually takes a woman till they're at least 40 years old, maybe 45. She's entered perimenopause to get this and to make the break. But by that time, she's already raised, from age 0 to 18, all the kids and everything. It's just the patriarchal husband. But that's when they usually make the break, is in their 40s. Cupido can also have a death or an unexpected chronic illness in the family that puts undue stress on the Cupido, because everybody is looking at Miss Helper to do everything. And I just had a good friend pass yesterday at 1 p.m. right on the eclipse. And her son had been taking care of her, probably for about 2.5 months. And she wanted to die at home. And she, wasn't going to take chemo, wasn't going to do anything, because she had the cancer had spread, metastasized throughout her body because of a fibroid tumor that got misdiagnosed in her uterus as not being malignant. They said it was benign. And this was 9 months ago, because I remember her telling me about it. And I remember looking at her chart and I said, you need to get that tested. You have to get that tested. It's not benign, I don't think. So, but she never did for whatever reason. And when it finally was looked at, which was about a month before everything broke loose, they found out that it was malignant. But by that time, it was too late. So sometimes you see things and you tell them, and it's just, she was a Cupido. And, that's up to them to do what they need to do. Okay, so death or unexpected chronic illness in the family puts undue stress on Cupido. No kidding. You have a job. You have to clean the house. You have to do the food. You have to, do the washing. You have to take care of the kids. And, oh, yeah, right. Somebody else, your great uncle gets sick or whatever, and he needs to move in with you because he doesn't have anybody else. Again, the Cupido woman is just getting hammered. But part of it is because she's got these blinders on that, family's everything, and she loves family, but there's times when it's got to be something else put in between to help her to survive this, or at least manage it better so that she doesn't get chronic fatigue syndrome. Anybody that's ever had that will tell you it is hell. It is absolute hell. I don't want to see anybody go there. So the tragedy in the family, usually a close family connection, can include aunts, uncles, and grandparents as well. And I just put this little graphic down here. Welcome to rejection. Stay strong. Find somebody else that can help you do this. Don't try and carry one more load on you. This is what Cupido has to learn. And it grieves my soul deeply because I have a lot of Cupido women clients, and they just got to come to it in their own time, no matter what you say, no matter how much you care. And that's why we're down here in these lifetimes, is to learn. That's a hell of a learning situation. It's not one I want. I passed that one.